My nephew added me to the wrong WhatsApp group. I discovered my 3 kids were plotting to steal $5.8 million. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Martha's Kitchen, my flagship restaurant on North Michigan Avenue. At 71, I still arrived before anyone else, checking every detail the way Robert and I had done together for 30 years. The smell of fresh bread from our ovens, the gleaming copper pots, the photos on the wall showing our journey from a small diner to 12 locations across Illinois. This was my life's work. I was reviewing the previous night's receipts when my phone buzzed. A WhatsApp notification. My nephew Michael had added me to a group. Sweet boy, always trying to keep me connected with the family. But the group name made me pause. Operation Memory Loss. Strange name for a family chat. Maybe it was about some charity event for Alzheimer's research. I opened it, expecting to see event planning messages. The first message I saw was from David, my eldest. Update doctor. Harrison confirmed today. $50,000 cash, untraceable. He'll provide official diagnosis within 2 weeks. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. Sarah, my daughter, had replied, "Perfect timing." The cognitive assessment forms are ready. Once we have the diagnosis, power of attorney transfers automatically based on the clause Dad stupidly put in the will. Stupidly? Robert had been the smartest man I knew. Tom, my youngest, added, "Mom's been forgetting things anyway. Yesterday she asked me twice about my job. This is basically legitimate." I'd asked him twice because I couldn't believe he'd lost another job. My hands started trembling. This had to be some misunderstanding, some horrible joke. But the messages kept coming, notification after notification. The timestamp showed this conversation was happening right now, 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. David typed, "Remember, no direct contact about this. Keep visiting normally. Sarah, you're the emotional one. Keep testing her memory. Tom, document everything that seems like confusion. We need evidence. Sarah, the restaurant empire alone is worth $5.8 million. Split 3 ways, we're set for life. Tom, finally, after all these years of begging for scraps. Scraps. I'd given Tom $500,000 over the past 5 years alone. My legs felt weak. I sank into Robert's old office chair, the one I'd never replaced after he died. The leather still smelled like his cologne, Old Spice, even after 15 years. He would have known what to do. He would have seen this coming. A new message popped up. David again. Meeting with doctor. Harrison, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Mom has her routine checkup next Monday. By Thanksgiving, we'll have control of everything. Thanksgiving. They were planning to steal my life by Thanksgiving. I realized I needed to scroll up to see how long this had been going on. My finger hovered over the screen. Part of me didn't want to know. These were my babies, the children I'd carried, nursed through fevers, cheered at graduations. But I had to know the truth. I scrolled to the top. The group had been created 6 months ago, June 15th, 2024, the day after Father's Day, when we'd all visited Robert's grave together. They'd cried with me, held my hands, told me how much they loved me. 6 months. 3,247 messages. They'd been planning this for 6 months. I locked my office door and told Maria, my morning manager, that I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. I felt like I might vomit. With shaking fingers, I scrolled back to the beginning of their conspiracy. June 15th, 11:47 p.m. David's first message. We need to talk about Mom, separately from her. She's getting worse, and the empire is at risk. Sarah had replied within minutes. Finally, I've been saying this for months. She forgot my birthday. I hadn't forgotten. I'd been in the hospital with pneumonia something she apparently didn't remember. Tom. She's sitting on millions while we struggle. It's not right. June 16th. They'd discussed options. David, ever the investment banker, had laid out a strategic approach. Conservatorship was too hard. Guardianship required too much proof. But power of attorney with a medical incompetency clause, that was their golden ticket. June 28th. Sarah found Dr. Harrison through her real estate connections. He's helped other families in similar situations, she'd written. The casual way she discussed fraud made my stomach turn. July 4th. While I was hosting our annual Independence Day party for all restaurant employees, they were negotiating the price. Dr. Harrison wanted $75,000. David talked him down to $50,000. July 19th. Tom had started documenting my episodes. Mom asked me about my job again today, recording everything in the journal. He'd attached photos of a notebook, fabricated evidence of a declining mind. August conversations turned darker. They discussed which nursing homes were cheapest. Sarah had toured 3 facilities, all at least 2 hours from Chicago. We need her far enough away that the staff won't know who she really is, she'd written. David's response chilled me. Riverside Manor is perfect. They specialize in advanced dementia. Once she's there, no one will believe anything she says. September brought financial planning, spreadsheets. David had created detailed projections. The restaurants would be sold to a chain. The house would go on the market immediately. Investment accounts liquidated. We're looking at $2 million each after taxes and expenses, he calculated. Sarah had asked about the employees, some who'd worked for us 20 years. Not our problem, David replied. The chain will probably fire them all anyway. These people were family to me. Maria's daughter was named Martha after me. Jorge had worked his way from dishwasher to head chef. They'd all stood by us through Robert's death, through the pandemic, through everything. October's messages were about maintaining. Appearances. Everyone needs to visit more, Sarah instructed. We need witnesses to see us being devoted children. They'd coordinated their stories. David would express concern about my memory to mutual friends. Sarah would mention finding me confused at family dinners. Tom would tell people I'd been calling him by Robert's name. I'd never once called him Robert. The most recent messages were from this morning. David confirming Dr. Harrison was ready. Sarah preparing the legal documents. Tom celebrating that his debts would soon be cleared. Then I saw it. Yesterday, 11:58 p.m. Michael had typed, Aunt Martha is the sweetest person I know. Sometimes I feel guilty about this. David's response, guilt is a luxury we can't afford. Stay focused. That's when Michael must have tried to add his girlfriend Monica to share his concerns, but added Mom from his contacts instead. Me. I set down my phone and ran to the bathroom, barely making it before I threw up. 37 years of motherhood dissolved in 3,247 messages. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back had more wrinkles than I remembered. Gray hair I'd stopped coloring after Robert died. But the eyes, they were still fighter's eyes. The same eyes that had built an empire from nothing. Robert and I had $3,000 in savings and a dream. We bought a failing diner on the south side, a greasy spoon that served watery coffee and burnt eggs. Everyone said we were crazy. Martha, my mother had said, you have a college degree. Why are you wasting your life in a kitchen? But Robert saw what I saw. Potential. We worked 18-hour days. I cooked while 7 months pregnant with David, my feet so swollen I had to wear Robert's shoes. When David was born, I wore him in a carrier while I prepped vegetables. The customers loved watching him sleep in his basket by the warm ovens. Sarah came along in 1980, Tom in 1983. The diner had become profitable enough to hire help, but we still lived in the apartment above it. The kids did homework in the booths, bussed tables for allowance money, learned that nothing came free in this world. By 1990, we'd opened our second location. By 2000, we had 6. Martha's Kitchen became a Chicago institution. The Tribune called us the Heart of Comfort Food. Food Network featured us 3 times. We employed 200 people, provided health insurance when most restaurants didn't, paid above minimum wage always. When Robert got sick in 2009, the cancer moved fast. Pancreatic, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. His last words to me, "Take care of our babies, Martha. Give them everything we didn't have." So I did. David wanted an MBA from Wharton, $300,000. It's an investment in my future, Mom. I sold our vacation home in Wisconsin, the place Robert and I had planned to retire. Sarah decided law school was her calling. Northwestern, $250,000. She quit practicing after 2 years to sell real estate, but I never said a word about the waste. Tom was my problem child. 5 businesses, each one a sure thing. The food truck, $80,000 loss. The app development company, $120,000 loss. The cryptocurrency trading firm, $200,000 loss. The sustainable clothing line, $150,000 loss. The podcast studio that never recorded a single episode, $75,000 loss. "This time is different, Mom," he'd say, those brown eyes just like Robert's. And I'd write another check, remembering my promise. I kept building the empire while funding their dreams. 12 restaurants now. Annual revenue of $24 million. I knew every employee's name, their kids' names, their struggles. When Jorge's wife needed cancer treatment, I covered what insurance wouldn't. When Maria's son got into Northwestern, I quietly paid his tuition. The restaurants weren't just businesses. They were Robert's legacy. Every recipe had a story. The meatloaf was his mother's. The apple pie was my grandmother's. The walls held photos of customers who'd become family, employees who'd grown old with us, celebrations and sorrows we'd shared over food. I'd spent every Thanksgiving since Robert died cooking in the original restaurant, serving free meals to anyone who needed them. David used to help serve. Sarah would organize the volunteers. Tom would joke with the guests, make them feel like family. When had they stopped seeing me as their mother and started seeing me as a bank account? I walked back to my desk, picked up the photo from David's Harvard graduation. We were all smiling, Robert so proud despite the pain medication, barely keeping him upright. 6 months later, he was gone. "I gave them everything," I said to his photo, "and they wanted more." My hands were steady now as I picked up my phone. Not the cell phone, the landline Robert had insisted we keep in the office. "Some conversations," he'd said, "need the weight of a real phone." This was one of them. James Crawford answered on the second ring. "Martha, I was just thinking about you. How's my favorite client?" "James, I need you to come to the restaurant. Now bring everything you have on my estate." 20 years we'd worked together. James had handled Robert's will, every property purchase, every business expansion. His voice changed immediately. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. While I waited, I changed my phone settings, removing myself from the WhatsApp group before they noticed I'd been added. But not before taking screenshots of everything. 3,247 screenshots. James arrived in 18 minutes, his silver hair slightly disheveled, briefcase in one hand, coffee in the other. He took one look at my face and closed the door behind him. "Show me," he said simply. I handed him my phone, watched his expression change from confusion to disbelief to rage. James didn't rage easily. The last time I'd seen him this angry was when a supplier had tried to overcharge us during Robert's final days. Martha, he set down the phone after reading, for 30 minutes. I have a confession. David approached me 2 months ago about your estate planning. Said he was worried about your health. I didn't like his questions. Too specific about power of attorney, too interested in override clauses. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. He pulled out his phone, opened a recording app. David's voice filled the room. Hypothetically, James, if Mom were declared incompetent, how quickly could assets transfer? You recorded him? Every conversation since August. Sarah, too. She called asking about property transfers if you were suddenly incapacitated. Tom wanted to know about breaking the trust fund Robert set up. My throat felt tight. You knew? I suspected. But I needed proof. Martha, I've been documenting everything. Every request, every suspicious question. I also hired a private investigator. You what? James pulled out a folder. Photos of David meeting with Dr. Harrison at a bar. Sarah touring nursing homes. Tom at the bank trying to access my accounts. Tom already tried to withdraw $50,000 last week. The bank called me since I'm listed as your attorney. I told them to flag any unusual activity. I sank into my chair. How did I not see this? Because you're a good mother. You see what you want to see in your children. James pulled out another folder. But we're going to war now, Martha, and we're already winning. What do you mean? Dr. Harrison? He's done this before. 4 elderly patients in the last 5 years, all mysteriously diagnosed with dementia. All lost their estates to their children. The FBI has been building a case. With your evidence, they'll have enough to prosecute. The FBI? Interstate fraud, Martha. Some of his victims lived in Indiana and Wisconsin. This is federal now. He pulled out his phone. Agent Jennifer Walsh has been waiting for something like this. One phone call and your children are under federal investigation. I thought about David's Harvard law degree. He knew exactly what federal charges meant. There's more, James continued. Your security cameras at all 12 restaurants? They back up to the cloud. Every visit from your children in the last 6 months is recorded, including last Tuesday when Sarah took photos of your office documents while you were in the kitchen. My security system. Robert had insisted on the best after a break-in years ago. They never knew about the cloud backup. No, they didn't. And Martha? Your manager Maria came to me a month ago. She overheard Sarah on the phone in the parking lot discussing your deterioration. Maria's been keeping her own records. Jorge, too. Your employees are loyal to you, not your children. 20 years of treating people right was paying off in ways I'd never expected. What do we do now? We gather more evidence. We let them hang themselves. And then, when we have everything... James smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. We serve justice like one of your Thanksgiving dinners, Martha, hot and all at once. How long do I pretend I don't know? Can you give me 2 weeks? Keep acting normal. Let them think their plan is working. I thought about sitting across from them at Sunday dinner, smiling, passing the potatoes while they plotted my destruction. I can do that. James stood, gathered his files. Martha, I'm sorry about your children, but you should know, you have more family than you think. Every employee at your restaurants, they're ready to fight for you. After he left, I sat alone in Robert's chair. We're going to war, I whispered to his photo, but we're already winning. Sunday dinner. The grandfather clock Robert bought at an estate sale chimed 6 o'clock as my children arrived, each performance more theatrical than the last. David came first, flowers in hand, roses, expensive ones. For my beautiful mother, he said, kissing my cheek. His cologne was new, something Italian, probably bought with the money he expected to steal. Sarah followed, carrying her famous spinach salad. "Mom, you look tired. Are you sleeping okay?" Her concerned expression was Oscar-worthy. She studied my face, looking for signs of the confusion she'd been documenting. Tom arrived last, as always, but surprisingly sober. "Smells amazing in here, Mom." He hugged me longer than usual, and I felt him eyeing the paintings in the hallway, already calculating their value. I'd made their favorites: pot roast for David, lasagna for Sarah, fried chicken for Tom. The same meals I'd cooked when they were children, when their biggest betrayal was sneaking cookies before dinner. "Mom, you already set the table," Sarah said, frowning at the five-place settings. "Did you forget we're only 4 now?" A test. I'd deliberately set Robert's place to see what they'd do. "Oh, silly me," I laughed, removing the 5th setting slowly, letting my hands shake just a little. I suppose I was thinking about the old days. David and Sarah exchanged glances. Tom typed something on his phone, documenting my confusion, no doubt. During dinner, they performed their choreographed concern beautifully. "Mom," David said, cutting his pot roast, "I was thinking you should see Dr. Harrison, just for a checkup. He's supposed to be excellent." "Oh? Who recommended him?" I asked innocently. A pause. "A colleague," David lied smoothly. "He specializes in senior wellness." "That's thoughtful, dear. Maybe after Thanksgiving. I'm so busy with the restaurant's holiday preparations." Sarah jumped in. "Mom, do you remember what year Dad died?" Another test. "Of course, sweetheart, 2010. October 15th, 3:47 p.m. Room 302 at Northwestern Memorial." I watched her face fall slightly. Too specific. Too clear. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay," she said, touching my hand. The same hand that had signed those nursing home inquiries. Tom tried a different approach. "Hey, Mom, remember my friend Kevin from high school?" I did. Remember Kevin? He'd stolen $200 from my purse during Tom's graduation party. "The tall one with red hair?" "No, Mom. Kevin was short, dark hair. You just saw him last month." I hadn't seen Kevin in 5 years, but I played along. "Oh, of course. How silly of me." Tom typed furiously on his phone. More evidence. After dinner, while I served apple pie, Robert's mother's recipe, David pulled out some papers. "Mom, while I'm thinking about it, could you sign these? Just updating some insurance beneficiaries." I pretended to fumble for my reading glasses, buying time. "Oh dear, I can't seem to find them. Can we do this next week?" "Sure, Mom." But his jaw tightened. Their timeline was sacred to them. Sarah helped clear the table, following me into the kitchen. "Mom, that's the 3rd time you've washed that plate." I hadn't washed it even once yet. "Is it? How strange." She made another note in her phone. As they prepared to leave, each hugged me. David whispered, "Take care of yourself, Mom." "We worry about you." Sarah added, "Maybe you should take a break from the restaurants." "You've earned it." Tom was the boldest. "We just want what's best for you, Mom. You know that, right?" "Of course, my darlings. You've always taken care of me." After they left, I stood at the window watching their cars disappear. Then I called James. "How did it go?" he asked. I deserve an Oscar. They tested my memory 6 times. I failed 3 of them. Perfect. Let them think they're winning. By the way, Doctor, Harrison just deposited $25,000 in cash. The FBI recorded the whole transaction. David gave him half up front. Yesterday. And Martha? Your nephew Michael called me. He's been torn up about this. Wants to help make it right. Poor Michael. 23 years old, working at Tom's latest failed venture. Probably pressured into this mess. Tell him I'm not angry with him. He wants to testify. Says he has recordings of Tom coaching him on what to document. My youngest son teaching his cousin to destroy me. Robert would be heartbroken. Robert would be planning revenge, James corrected. Your husband didn't build this empire by being soft. He was right. Robert had been gentle with family, but ruthless in business. What's next? Keep playing the part. Your appointment with Dr. Harrison is Thursday. The FBI will be listening to every word. I hung up and walked through my empty house, past photos of happier times, Christmas mornings, graduation days, wedding dances, all of it a lie, apparently. I won an Oscar every Sunday at dinner, I said to Robert's portrait, but the final performance is coming. Thursday arrived gray and drizzling, fitting weather for betrayal. David insisted on driving me to Dr. Harrison's office, playing the devoted son. I just want to make sure you get there safely, Mom. The FBI agent, Jennifer Walsh, had coached me the night before. The wire was sewn into my bra, undetectable. Just be yourself, she'd said. Let him lead the conversation. We need him to explicitly state his intentions. Dr. Harrison's office was in a strip mall between a liquor store and a payday loan shop. Not exactly where you'd expect to find a respected neurologist. The waiting room smelled like mildew and desperation. Mrs. Preston. Dr. Harrison greeted me warmly, all false smiles and sweaty palms. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with the jumpy energy of someone with secrets. David has told me so much about you. All good things, I hope, I said, noting the luxury watch on his wrist. Probably bought with someone else's life savings. His office was deliberately intimidating. Diplomas I later learned were partly fake, medical books he'd probably never opened, and a desk too large for the space. He gestured for me to sit in a low chair that made him tower over me. Now, Mrs. Preston, David says you've been having some difficulties. Has he? Like what? Memory issues, confusion, getting lost. Goodness, I don't recall any of that. He laughed nervously. Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? You wouldn't remember being confused. The private investigator James hired had done excellent work. Dr. Harrison owed $200,000 to the Torino crime family for gambling debts. 3 broken fingers last year when he couldn't pay. He needed my children's money desperately. Let's run some tests, he said, pulling out a clipboard. What year is it? 2024. What month? November. Can you count backwards from 100 by sevens? I deliberately hesitated, then started 100, 93, 86, 79. That's enough. He scribbled notes. Now I'm going to tell you 3 words. Remember them. Apple, penny, table. For the next 20 minutes, he ran through tests I could have passed in my sleep. But I stumbled strategically, just enough to seem impaired, but not enough to be obvious. Mrs. Preston, I need to ask you something important. Do you ever feel like your children are trying to hurt you? The question Agent Walsh had hoped for. Hurt me? My children love me. Sometimes, when cognitive decline begins, patients develop paranoia about their loved ones. They think family members are stealing from them or plotting against them. How terrible, I said. Is that what's happening to me? He leaned forward and I could smell coffee and fear on his breath. I believe you're in the early stages of Alzheimer's, Mrs. Preston. You need immediate intervention. Oh my, how immediate. I think you should sign power of attorney to your children today, before it progresses. It's the kindest thing you can do for them. There it was, the FBI had their confession. But I feel fine, I protested weakly. That's the insidious nature of this disease. You feel fine while your brain deteriorates. Your children are trying to protect you. He pulled out forms, already filled out. Just sign here, and we can ensure you get the care you need. I studied the Forms pretending to struggle reading them. This says I'm mentally incompetent. It's just legal language. What matters is getting you help. At Riverside Manor? He froze. How did you know about Riverside? Lucky guess. It's where you sent Mrs. Chen, isn't it? And Mr. Johansson? And those sisters from Wisconsin, the Pemberton twins. His face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. 4 elderly patients in 5 years, doctor. Harrison, all diagnosed with Alzheimer's. All lost everything to their children. What did you get? $50,000 each time? He stood up, shaking. You need to leave. Actually, I don't. I pulled out my phone, showed him the WhatsApp messages. Operation Memory Loss, creative name. Did you come up with that? This is entrapment. No, doctor. This is justice. I stood, suddenly feeling every one of my 71 years, but standing tall anyway. The FBI is very interested in your side business. In fact, they're probably arresting David right about now. He lunged for his desk drawer. I didn't flinch. Agent Walsh had assured me they'd removed his gun the night before. Looking for this? Agent Walsh entered, holding an evidence bag with a .38 revolver. 2 more agents followed. Dr. Harrison, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. As they read him his rights, he started crying. They made me do it. The Torinos will kill me. I needed the money. You destroyed families for money, I said quietly. Mrs. Chen died in that nursing home, alone and confused, thinking her children had abandoned her. Because they had. Because of you. They led him out in handcuffs past a waiting room full of patients. His receptionist was also being arrested. She'd been notarizing false documents for years. Agent Walsh turned to me. You did perfectly, Mrs. Preston. We have everything we need. What about my children? David's being arrested at his office. Sarah at her real estate agency. Tom. She checked her phone. Tom's trying to run. He won't get far. I sat back down in that low chair, suddenly exhausted. His gambling debts. Dr. Harrison wasn't the only one who owed money to dangerous people, was he? Tom owes almost $400,000 to various creditors, some less forgiving than others. That's why he was desperate enough to do this. Desperation doesn't excuse betrayal, Mrs. Preston. She was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. The FBI agent in the next room heard everything, I said, repeating what she'd told me would happen. Every word, she confirmed. Your testimony will put him away for 15 years minimum. 15 years. He'd be 55 when he got out. If he got out. The Torinos had a long memory. Chapter 7. Thanksgiving Preparations. I stood in my kitchen at 5 a.m. Thanksgiving morning, just as I had every year since Robert died. But this year was different. This would be the last meal I'd ever cook for my children. The turkey was already in the oven. 22 pounds, organic. The kind Sarah always insisted on. I'd made the stuffing from Robert's mother's recipe, the one David claimed was better than any restaurant's. Tom's favorite sweet potato casserole with the marshmallow top sat ready to bake. My hands moved automatically through decades of practice, but my mind was elsewhere. James had called the night before with updates. All 3 children were out on bail. Trials set for January. They still didn't know I was the one who'd exposed them. The FBI had let them think Dr. Harrison had been caught in a separate investigation. One last family dinner, I'd told James. I need to look them in the eyes one more time. Martha, are you sure? They could be dangerous. They're my children, James. They won't hurt me physically. They need me alive to sign papers. He'd reluctantly agreed, but insisted on precautions. Hidden cameras throughout the house, recording everything. FBI agents in a van outside. Local police on standby. My neighbor, retired Detective Carl Morrison, would be watching from his window. I peeled potatoes, remembering teaching Sarah this same task when she was 7. "Gentle strokes, sweetheart," I'd said. "The best things take patience." The green beans were Tom's request from when he was 10. Not just any green beans, the ones with almonds and brown butter, the way his grandmother made them. He'd called yesterday, voice bright and false. "Can't wait for your famous dinner, Mom. Should I bring wine?" "Just bring yourself," I'd told him, knowing he'd bring papers instead. By noon, the house smelled like every Thanksgiving of the past 40 years. I'd even made 2 pies, pumpkin for David, pecan for Sarah. The apple pie, Robert's favorite, I'd made for myself. A small rebellion. I set the table with our wedding china, the crystal glasses we'd received as anniversary gifts, the silver Robert's mother had passed down. Everything perfect, everything meaningful, everything they'd planned to sell. At 2 p.m., I changed into the dress Robert had bought me for our last anniversary together, navy blue with small pearls on the collar. "You look like a queen," he'd said. I needed his strength today. The doorbell rang at 3 p.m. sharp. David first, naturally. He wore his best suit and carried a briefcase barely concealed under his coat. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom." His hug was performance art. Sarah arrived minutes later with her husband Mark, who looked uncomfortable. Mark had always been decent. I wondered how much he knew. Sarah carried her phone prominently, probably recording everything for evidence. Tom came last, jumpy and sweating, despite the November cold. His eyes darted around, calculating values. The chandelier, $5,000. The grandfather clock, $8,000. His mother's heart, worthless, apparently. "Shall we eat?" I suggested, leading them to the dining room. They gasped appropriately at the spread. I'd outdone myself, one final masterpiece. The turkey golden and glistening, every side dish perfectly prepared, the table looking like a magazine photo. "Mom, this is incredible," Sarah said, and for a moment she sounded like my little girl again. We sat in our usual places, Robert's chair empty as always. I said grace, thanking God for family, for health, for truth. David shifted uncomfortably at that last word. The meal began normally. Compliments on the food, small talk about work, careful avoiding of anything serious. But I could see them exchanging glances, building up courage. Finally, David cleared his throat. "Mom, we need to talk about your future." "Oh?" I passed him more stuffing, watching his hands tremble slightly. "We're worried about you. The confusion, the memory issues. We think it's time to make some arrangements." Sarah jumped in. "We found a lovely facility, Riverside Manor. They specialize in memory care." "How thoughtful," I said, cutting my turkey precisely. "When would I visit this place?" "Actually," Tom pulled out papers from his jacket, "we thought you might want to sign some preliminary paperwork, just to get on the waiting list." I took the papers, pretending to struggle reading them. These weren't waiting list forms. This was a power of attorney, giving them complete control of everything. "Dr. Harrison says time is of the essence," David added, producing a medical form. "He's already provided his diagnosis." "Has he?" I set down my fork. "That's interesting, considering Dr. Harrison was arrested 6 days ago." The room went silent. Sarah's phone clattered to her plate. Tom stopped chewing mid-bite. David's face went from red to white in seconds. "What?" David managed. "The FBI raided his office. Something about fraud, fake diagnoses. 4 other families, apparently." I took a sip of wine. Terrible what some people will do for money. "Mom, I don't know what you're—" "Stop." I stood, walked to the window. "I know everything. WhatsApp, David." "Really? Your nephew Michael accidentally added me to your little conspiracy group." The doorbell rang. "That would be the police," I said calmly, though my heart was breaking. "Happy Thanksgiving." The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. My children sat frozen, their Thanksgiving dinner becoming a last supper they'd never forget. "Mom, wait!" David stood, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "Whatever you think you know. Sit down, David." My voice was steel, Robert's strength flowing through me. "For once in your life, stop talking and listen." He sat. They all did, like children caught stealing cookies. Except the theft here was my entire life. 6 months, I continued, returning to my seat. You plotted for 6 months. 3,247 messages discussing how to destroy me. Did you enjoy the planning? Was it fun? Deciding which nursing home was cheapest? Sarah started crying. "Mom, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You toured 3 facilities. Riverside Manor was your favorite because it was far enough, a way that no one would recognize me. 2 hours from anyone who loves me." "We love you," Tom protested, sweat pouring down his face. "No, Tom, you love my money. There's a difference." I pulled out my phone, showed them screenshots. Should I read some highlights? How about this one from David? "Once we have control, we liquidate everything, fast and clean." Mark, Sarah's husband, stood up. "Sarah, what the hell is this?" "You didn't tell your husband?" I asked Sarah. "How are you planning to explain my sudden disappearance?" Mark, I can explain." "Or this gem from Tom," I continued, scrolling. "The old bat has no idea what's coming. That's your mother you're talking about, the woman who worked 18-hour days to keep you fed." The doorbell rang a third time. David moved toward the back door, but I shook my head. "Agent Walsh has people there, too. And at the garage. And Detective Morrison is watching from next door. You're surrounded, David, just like you surrounded me." "Agent Walsh?" David's face went whiter. "FBI? Doctor. Harrison crossed state lines with his fraud. That makes it federal. And you 3? Conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, attempted theft of $5.8 million in assets. Federal crimes." Tom bolted for the stairs, probably thinking he could escape through a window. We heard him stop, muffled voices, then footsteps coming back down. Agent Walsh entered first, followed by Tom in handcuffs, then 4 more agents. "Mrs. Preston," Agent Walsh nodded. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. They haven't touched the pie yet, if your team wants some later." She almost smiled. "David Preston, Sarah Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and racketeering." As they cuffed David, he found his voice. "Mom, please, I have children. Your grandchildren. The ones you told I was losing my mind. The ones you've been preparing to never see me again." I stood facing him. "What did you tell them? That Grandma was too sick to remember them?" Sarah sobbed as they cuffed her. "We were desperate. Do you know how hard it is living in your shadow? Perfect Martha Preston with her perfect restaurants. We could never measure up." "I never asked you to measure up. I asked you to show up. There's a difference." Tom, always the coward, tried another approach. "Mom, I owe dangerous people money. They'll kill me if I can't pay. You owe the Torinos $400,000 because of your cocaine habit and gambling. That's not desperation, Tom. That's consequences." Mark stood in the corner, stunned. "Sarah, our kids, what have you done?" "Mark, you can take some pie home for the children," I told him gently. "This isn't their fault." Agent Walsh pulled out a tablet, showing a recording. Dr. Harrison's voice filled the room. "Your children are trying to protect you." Then my response. "At Riverside Manor?" "We have everything," Walsh told them. "Dr. Harrison already confessed. He's looking at 15 years. You, 3, might get less if you cooperate. This is entrapment, David protested, finding his lawyer voice even in handcuffs. No, I said quietly. This is what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, when you see love as something to exploit. As they led my children out, Sarah turned back. How could you do this to us? I walked over to her, close enough to smell her perfume, the same kind she'd worn to her wedding, where Robert had walked her down the aisle just months before cancer took him. I didn't do this to you, Sarah. You did this to yourselves. I gave you everything: education, money, love, support. The only thing I didn't give you was my dignity. And that's what you tried to steal. Tom was loaded into the first car, David into the second. Sarah lingered in the doorway. What about forgiveness? You always taught us about forgiveness. I'll forgive you someday, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean escaping consequences. Your father would have understood that. The door closed. The cars drove away. My house fell silent except for the grandfather clock ticking and the turkey still warm on the table. Agent Walsh remained behind. You did the right thing, Mrs. Preston. Did I? They're my children. They stopped being your children the moment they plotted to lock you away and steal your life's work. I looked at the Thanksgiving table. 5 place settings, only one used. All that food, all that love, wasted. The keys don't fit anymore, I said quietly. Excuse me. When they come back someday, if they come back, the keys won't fit. I'm changing all the locks tomorrow. She squeezed my shoulder gently. The hardest betrayals come from those we love most. After she left, I sat alone at my feast, poured myself another glass of wine, and raised it to Robert's empty chair. I kept my promise, honey. I took care of our babies. But sometimes, taking care of someone means letting them face justice. The doorbell rang one more time. Carl Morrison from next door, retired detective, holding a covered dish. Thought you might want some company, Martha. And my wife sent green bean casserole. Thank you, Carl. I let him in, grateful for the reminder the family isn't always blood. Would you like some turkey? The courthouse in downtown Chicago was packed. 6 months had passed since Thanksgiving, and the trials had become local news sensations. Restaurant matriarch betrayed by own children ran in the Tribune. The WhatsApp conspiracy topped the Sun-Times. I sat in the front row, wearing the same navy dress from Thanksgiving. James Crawford beside me on one side, Mariah and Jorge on the other. My real family, it turned out. David went first. His expensive lawyer, paid for with money he'd stolen from his children's college funds. We'd learned, tried everything. Your Honor, my client was concerned about his mother's declining mental state. Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh, who'd moved from FBI liaison to lead prosecutor, destroyed him methodically. The WhatsApp messages on giant screens. The recorded conversations with Dr. Harrison. David's own voice. Once we control everything, we sell fast. No emotional attachments. Mr. Preston, Walsh asked him on the stand, did you love your mother? Of course I did. Past tense? Do. I do love her. Then why did you call her, and I quote, an obstacle to our financial freedom? David had no answer. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. 5 years federal prison, 3 years probation, $500,000 in fines. Sarah's trial was harder for me. She broke down completely, her husband Mark having filed for divorce and taken the children. I was trying to protect the family legacy, she sobbed. By selling it to a chain restaurant corporation, Walsh countered, showing emails between Sarah and Texas Roadhouse executives. Mom was getting confused. She needed help. Walsh played security footage from my restaurants. Me conducting meetings, reviewing spreadsheets, handling complex negotiations. "Does this look like someone with dementia, Mrs. Mitchell?" The worst part was when they showed her touring Riverside Manor, laughing with the director about difficult patients and how to keep them calm. My daughter, discussing me like I was already gone. Guilty. 3 years prison, 5 years probation. Her real estate license permanently revoked. Tom's trial was the shortest. He'd tried to run after bail, gotten caught at the Canadian border with a fake passport. His public defender looked exhausted before they even started. But Tom surprised everyone. He took the stand and confessed everything. "I'm a cocaine addict," he said quietly. "I owe money to people who break legs. I was desperate, and I betrayed the only person who ever really loved me." "Mr. Preston," Walsh asked, "whose idea was Operation Memory Loss?" "David's. But I was eager to join. I wanted the money." He looked at me for the first time in months. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know it doesn't matter. But I'm sorry. 2 years prison, mandatory rehabilitation, 10 years probation." The judge, citing his cooperation and addiction issues, was lenient. Dr. Harrison's trial was pure satisfaction. 15 years federal prison, medical license permanently revoked, $2 million in restitution to all families affected. He cried when they let him away. The Torinos would be waiting when he got out, if he got out. During the trials, more truth emerged. David had been embezzling from his own firm. Sarah had been taking kickbacks on real estate deals. Tom had been selling drugs, not just using them. My children weren't just betrayers. They were criminals who happened to share my DNA. Michael testified for the prosecution, shaking as he explained how Tom had coached him to document my confusion. "Aunt Martha was like a second mother to me," he said. "I've never regretted anything more than participating in this." After the final verdict, we stood on the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions I didn't answer. But one young journalist asked something that made me stop. "Mrs. Preston, what would your late husband think?" I turned to her, saw genuine curiosity in her eyes. "Robert always said that character is what you do when no one's watching. My children thought no one was watching. They were wrong. Do you regret turning them in?" "I regret raising children who made it necessary." That night, I held a dinner at the original Martha's Kitchen. All my employees were invited, plus James, Agent Walsh, Detective Morrison, and Michael. We filled the restaurant with laughter, real laughter, not the performed kind I'd endured for months. Maria raised a toast. "To Mrs. Martha, who taught us that family isn't blood. Family is who stands by you when the world falls apart." Jorge added, "And who makes the best turkey in Chicago." Michael approached me quietly. "Aunt Martha, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're 23, Michael. You were manipulated by adults who should have protected you. There's nothing to forgive." I hugged him. "Besides, I need a new VP of operations. Interested?" His eyes widened. "You'd trust me? You came forward when it mattered. That's the kind of character I can build on." Agent Walsh pulled me aside before leaving. "You know they'll get out eventually. David in 3 years with good behavior, Sarah in 2, Tom might be out in 18 months. I know. What will you do?" I looked around my restaurant, at the photos on the walls, the people who'd become my chosen family. I'll keep living. I'll keep building. And if they ever truly want to make amends, not for money, but for real forgiveness, I'll listen. And if they don't, then they'll remain what they chose to become, strangers who happen to know my maiden name. The evening ended with pie, because everything in my life seemed to circle back to pie. Apple for Robert, pumpkin for new beginnings, pecan for the sweetness that survives even the most bitter betrayals. As I locked up the restaurant, I found an envelope slipped under the door. David's handwriting. I opened it, read the single line. You were a good mother. We were terrible children. I crumpled it up, then smoothed it out, then folded it carefully into my purse. Maybe someday those words would mean something. But not today. Today, I had a business to run and a real family to take care of. 6 months later, I stood in the conference room of Martha's Kitchen flagship location, signing papers that would change everything. Not selling, God, no. Expanding. 3 new locations in Milwaukee, 2 in Indianapolis. The empire my children tried to steal was now growing beyond their wildest dreams. Michael sat beside me, my new VP of Operations, wearing the suit I'd bought him for his first day. He'd proven himself brilliant, innovative, and most importantly, loyal. The nephew who'd accidentally saved me had become the son I'd always wanted. Mrs. Preston, the banker said, sliding another document forward, with this expansion, your company valuation reaches $8.2 million. More than my children thought it was worth. They'd undervalued everything, including me. Also, James added, reviewing his papers, the restitution payments have started arriving. David's firm is paying out his portion. Sarah's assets were liquidated. Tom has nothing, but he's agreed to work payments when he gets out. Put it in the employee fund, I said. Every penny my children paid would go to college scholarships for my workers' kids. Something good from something rotten. Maria knocked, entered with a smile. Mrs. Martha, there's someone here to see you. I expected another reporter. Instead, Mark walked in with Sarah's children, Emma 8 and Josh 6. My grandchildren, who I hadn't seen since before Thanksgiving. Mrs. Preston, Mark started formally, then stopped. Martha, the kids have been asking about you. Emma ran to me before he could finish. Grandma, Mommy said you were sick, but you look okay. My heart cracked. I knelt down, hugged her tight. I'm perfectly healthy, sweetheart. Josh hung back, confused. Mom said you didn't want to see us anymore. That's not true, Mark said firmly. Your mom made a mistake, a big mistake, but Grandma always wanted to see you. We moved to my office, the kids exploring while Mark and I talked. The divorce is final next month, he said quietly. I have full custody. Sarah gets supervised visits when she's released. I'm sorry, Mark. Don't be. I should have seen it. The expensive purchases, the sudden interest in your health, the way she'd count your pills when we visited. He shrugged. Love makes us blind sometimes. What do you need? Nothing. I mean, I'm okay. My job covers everything. But the kids, they need their grandmother. The real one, not the confused, sick version Sarah was preparing them to forget. Emma brought over a photo from my desk, Robert and me at Sarah's wedding. Is this Grandpa? Yes, sweetheart. Mom said he would have wanted her to have the restaurants, the lies we tell ourselves and our children. Your grandpa wanted everyone to work for what they had. He built this place from nothing, working every single day. Could we work here? Josh asked. When we're older? If you earn it, I said. No free rides in this family. Mark smiled. Sarah hated when you said that. I know. Maybe if I'd said it more. Don't. You were a good mother. They were adults who made choices. We arranged a schedule. Wednesdays after school, Sundays for dinner. Real dinners, not performances. The kids needed stability, family, truth. I could give them that. A month later, I got 3 letters on the same day. Prison mail. David's was typed, formal. Mother, I've been attending therapy. The therapist says I have narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. I'm working on understanding why I felt entitled to what you built. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to understand. David. Sarah's was handwritten, tear-stained. Mom, I lost everything. Mark, the kids, my career, you. I tell myself it's your fault for turning us in, but I know that's a lie. We turned ourselves into monsters. Tom showed me the cafeteria here. It's nothing like your food. I miss your apple pie. I miss you. Sarah. Tom's was brief. Got my 60-day chip today, cocaine-free. It's a start. Thank you for telling the truth. It saved my life. Tom, I read them twice, then filed them away. Maybe someday I'd respond. Not yet. The Martha Preston Foundation launched that fall, supporting elderly victims of family fraud. The first fundraiser raised $200,000. Judge Morrison, Carl's wife as it turned out, gave the keynote about recognizing elder abuse. The biggest predators, she said, often share our last names. Local news did a follow-up story. They interviewed me in the original restaurant, surrounded by employees who'd become family. The reporter asked, "Do you regret having children?" "No," I said firmly. "I regret that they chose greed over love. But my life is full of family." I gestured to Maria, Jorge, Michael, the servers and cooks who'd stood by me. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. Any advice for others facing family betrayal? Document everything. Trust your instincts and remember, you didn't break the family by revealing the truth. They broke it by making the betrayal necessary. The story aired during Thanksgiving week. Fitting. This year I cooked Thanksgiving dinner for 50. My employees, their families, Michael, Mark, and the kids, Agent Walsh, now a friend, the Morrisons, and 12 elderly people from my foundation who'd been betrayed by their own families. As I served turkey, Emma tugged my apron. "Grandma, why isn't Mom here?" "Because she made choices that hurt people, sweetheart. But she's getting help." "Will she come back?" I looked at my granddaughter's innocent face, then at the room full of people who'd proven the family isn't about DNA. "Maybe someday," I said, "when she learns the family isn't what you take, it's what you give." The grandfather clock chimed 6, Robert's time. I raised my glass to his portrait, then to my chosen family. "To second chances," I toasted, "and to the family we choose." Michael stood up. "To Aunt Martha, who taught us that strength isn't about never falling. It's about who you become when you rise." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Martha." Outside, the Chicago wind howled, winter setting in. But inside Martha's kitchen, surrounded by loyal hearts and honest love, I was finally warm. My children had tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a seed. And now I was blooming. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.